Gospel of John, chapter 20, verse 24 and 25. When you read that statement, what Thomas makes, he says, I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands and put my fingers into them and place my hand into the wound in his side. You can see why he was called the Doubting Thomas. I can't think of a reason why Thomas would be missing. The Bible doesn't tell us why Thomas wasn't there. It just says Thomas was not present among the disciples when Jesus made his appearance to the other disciples. It could have been that he was the one who was assigned, and I think this could be more likely, and I'll give you my reasons why. He was the only one bold enough to leave the room. None of the other disciples wanted to leave the room to go get food. I think he was sent to go get some food for all the disciples who were not trapped. They had locked themselves in. That's what the Bible says. They had locked themselves in for fear of the Jewish leaders, because the Jewish leaders had just killed Jesus, their master, and for all they knew, they were next on the hit list. So the disciples, all the curtains drawn, doors locked, but they're getting hungry. So they all said, Thomas, you're the only guy who can do this for us. Go get us some food. He had to go to a couple of places to get all the food that he needed to get for these starving disciples who were also grieving. So here's Thomas. He's coming back with the bags of food, and before he even comes up to the door, he hears screaming, he hears laughter, he hears all sorts of sounds coming out of that door. And Thomas is a little confused because when he left the disciples that morning in that room, they were depressed, they were suicidal, they did not have much hope, the room was gloomy, and everyone was so sad when he left. But here he is, he's standing outside the door, and he's hearing screaming and everyone shouting to one another. So he knocks on the door, and finally they open the door. And as soon as he opens the door, all of the disciples, the 10 of them, come to Thomas screaming. They're all talking at the same time. They're all saying something with great excitement. Thomas had to say, shush, shush, shush. One of you, tell me what happened. And I think maybe Peter said, hey, Jesus was here, he says. And Thomas was like, yeah, right, Jesus was here. Yeah, well, you all had a vision? I told you not to eat the mushrooms last night. This is not good for you. No, he's like, no, Jesus was here. And he said, were the doors locked? Yes, the doors were locked. Then it was a ghost. No, it was not a ghost. Jesus was physically present in our midst. Jesus spoke to us. Imagine the excitement with which that would have been communicated. To the point that Thomas, I think, responds with frustration, which is, I am not gonna believe you until I see Jesus and I put my fingers into his nail-pierced hands and I also touch his wound on the side, is what Thomas declares.